is Joy McCulloch, and I'm here with the pre-ride show presented by Envy. We're at Belgian Waffle Ride, and we're with none other than Amanda Nauman, who is, hi, how are you?
Good, excited to be here.
You fought traffic, so
Yes,
you're here?
Every year, it feels like there's something getting down here, but yeah.
Yeah. And so where do you come from?
Lake Forest, so about an hour away.
Okay.
2 hours if there's traffic, but yeah.
So not too far,
Yeah.
no jet lag.
No, yeah, this feels like a home race for me.
Oh, good. And it really should be, because Amanda, you've been part of the BWR story since the beginning.
Yeah.
So, looking back at 2015 or 2014, when you really got into gravel, you came from cyclocross background,
Yeah.
which I think is still at your root and at your core.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about your experience with BWR.
Yeah, it started because Marks was such a proponent of cyclocross back then.
Okay.
And when he was working at SPY, he sponsored athletes like Nicole Duke and Jonathan Page and Ryan Trebone. And as a cyclocross racer, I was like, man, I want to go do this stupid, long, hard ride that all these cyclocross racers are doing. And so at the time, I remember going to do it like, oh, I get to be in the same race as Nicole Duke. Because at the time, I was still like young cyclocross racer. And so it was a big deal for me to be able to be there with the pros. It felt cool.
Yeah.
And so I always carry that with me in all these, subsequent years. It's like, I always remember that it feels cool for everybody else to be here with the pros. And I love that about this.
And it's so awesome, Amanda, that you remember that.
Yeah.
As a pro yourself now, like you'll be walking around the venue and you have fans, right? You have people wear your socks, and they're going to see like this is Amanda, and to have that equal playing ground where those people, the non-pros, are doing the exact same course that you are.
Yeah, totally. And I think Marks was very innovative in that way, because back then it wasn't really a thing yet. It wasn't that concept of, I remember going to triathlons and lining up with people, you're doing the same course as the pros. And as a triathlete, that was so awesome. And it just started carrying over into these other things that I cared about a lot, like gravel events. And it just really started this whole movement that I think is great.
That's cool. And I like, Amanda, you just said you cared a lot about the gravel events.
Yeah.
So you've gone on to be the champion, the winner of Unbound, of BWR. How's that trajectory gone for you?
It's wild. I mean, I could have never expected that back then. I think rock cobbler was a very early one. Like if you look back at old articles about rock cobbler, like gravel was never even a word that was mentioned to describe it. They called it a long cyclocross race. And so it's cool to see the evolution of it, and having been there from the beginning, like I signed up for these events because it was a really cool adventure and something that was totally different to do. And now it's evolved into like a race, and people are super strict about it and all this, and it's been fun to see that evolution along the years. But at the same time, like I think back to that time, and Amanda back then would have like totally laughed at how far it's come.
Like, what's all this seriousness?
I know, until like getting on the trainer before the starting line, like come on.
So at Unbound this year, or not this year, because we'll talk about that in a minute, but are people on the trainers at Unbound?
I mean, they were before Mid-South in 2020. Like I'm sure people are like actually getting warmed up to race now, which is wild, but yeah, it's come a long way.
That's a very interesting perspective. And if you look at, obviously, the champion of BWR in 15, and you won Unbound before that, and now you've expanded your repertoire. What did you do at Unbound this year?
Oh yeah, the 350-mile race. It was crazy. I've done Unbound 5 times, and you get an award when you get into the 1,000-mile club.
Okay.
So I got that in 2019. Yeah, and in 2020 I signed up for the 350. Obviously that didn't happen, so I got to do it this year.
And so how long did the 350 miles take you?
29 hours.
Oh, do you take naps along there?
I didn't. I thought about it a lot. I really fought myself to like have these conversations like maybe I should take a nap. I didn't know how far third was behind me, so I was like, well, if I take a nap and she passes me, I'm not gonna know. I was just, you fight this internal battle and convince yourself of like stupid logic that doesn't make sense.
True. So you were racing for second. You were second on the road.
Yeah.
And you finished second, which is a great accomplishment.
Yeah, thanks.
Over that distance.
Yeah.
Were you of that 29? Were you solo a lot of the time, or what was it like?
Yeah, I spent about like 19 to 20 hours of it alone, if not a little bit more. Yeah, it was a long day. I mean, it started hot, riding into the night. That was the first time that I've ever done that, and it was a really cool experience. And then, yeah, you just keep pedaling, you just keep going. It's crazy. I mean, the cool thing about that one, though, is that you finish on the last 30 miles are about the same as the 100 and the 200 course. So it kind of only feels like 220 miles, because the last part of it, you're like, oh, thank God, I'm almost over and riding with other people.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to talk yourself off the ledge.
Yeah, exactly.
And after that, you then decided to go, another craze people are doing are the FKTs, which is a fastest known time.
Yeah.
So you've selected 2 routes kind of through the pandemic to now. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because I know it's a big, people are searching those out or creating these epic adventures for themselves.
Yeah, so I planned last winter. I was like, okay, what am I going to do February-ish time frame this year, because it was still towards the end of the pandemic. We didn't know what was going to happen with vaccines and stuff, and I was like, well, I need something to do. So there's a segment called the Los Padres Traverse it's like a point-to-point, basically. And yeah, I did that in February, and then I did it again in April to see if I could go a little bit faster. And then fast forward to as soon as I knew Unbound was going to happen, it was like, okay, well, I'm doing 350 miles. I need to do something before that to get me ready for it. And I finished the Caldera 150 Southern Loop. I was the first person, male or female, to finish that route. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it took me like 33 hours or something ridiculous. I know, and that was a long day, but I slept.
That was a day and a half.
Yeah, I know. But I slept. I got to sleep in that one. I spent like 10 hours off the bike on that one.
And was that self-supported?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I know. It's fun to do that stuff. I think I had never done it before, and the cool thing about the pandemic was it gave me the opportunity to explore that, where I probably wouldn't have ever thought to do it.
And I'm it's really inspiring to hear that, Amanda, being like, okay, this is our situation, and something, this is a predicament, or like you're being held back.
Yeah.
But you've really excelled and broadened your horizons. So if we look towards Sunday, how many Belgian, will this be your 5th BWR?
I don't know, it might be my 6th. Yeah, I don't know, I have to go back and count.
What are your expectations for Sunday?
So in 2019 I finished 9th.
Okay.
And I think in my Strava description I wrote this is a real road race now.
Yeah.
Because that's how it felt. I mean, it would super turn into a road race. But in 2016, the year that I won, Mark's had done a women's wave. It was the only time in the past 10 years probably that he did a separate women's wave, and that was the year that I won. And it was totally different. It's a different mentality to be able to roll that neutral start and get onto the dirt with just the women. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to play out with a stronger field. And I was talking to David in the car on the way here. I was like, I think I'm actually gonna have to figure out how to do this road race, ride with the group. But I don't know what's gonna happen.
We'll talk offline.
Yeah.
I'll give you some secrets, but I think this suits you well. I'm glad you've highlighted that as a way that this is going to be a little bit different vibe, and that's something great that BWR is bringing to their competition.
Yeah, and there was a lot of controversy about Unbound and kind of how those women's races played out in the 200 miles.
Yeah.
And what comes from those conversations are always like, okay, well, then just give the women their own wave and see what happens. And at an event like Unbound, it's a little difficult. Marks has figured out how to do it here, and I think in a way that makes it fair and kind of gives all of us an equal playing field. And I'm really excited to see how it happens, because so many people have hypothesized it. Well, what if we just give it? It's okay, well, let's do it and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's exciting, we're going to have a moto dedicated to the women's field, to following and giving play-by-play updates on what's happening. So your fans, everybody at home, can follow along and see how that women's field sifts out.
Yeah, and in 2019, we started with all the men. I was in the lead for maybe the first 30 miles or so, but nobody knew it. Maybe one photographer knew I was there. It was just. And
you're just hiding.
We're so far in the mix and far back that I'm sure it was difficult for the media to even figure that out. So this is the perfect opportunity to see okay, let's throw it out there and see how it works. Yeah. My only concern is that I'm pretty sure there are a lot of pro women who are faster than some of the Cap 4 men. And I'm so nervous about the first single track dirt sections, because we're for sure gonna catch people. And like, how's that gonna happen? On your left for
Yeah.
like an hour.
Take a little bell, but I think it's going to be where it's sort of a testing ground,
Yeah.
right? To see what's going to work best to highlight the women's field and give you a fair shot.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, good luck, and also before we wrap up, what's happening in September?
Oh, Mammoth Tufts, yeah. Yeah, we're putting on our first event. It was supposed to happen last year. We had to do that virtual, obviously. But yeah, I've used Mammoth as training grounds for this, for Kansas, for so many years, and it's been, kind of like my secret training spot in a way. And David and I always joke that like we were either going to keep it a secret or we were going to share it with everyone. So yeah, we decided to share it with everyone, and I'm excited to kind of show everybody the secret gravel that's back there.
Awesome. So it's mammothtufts.com.
Yeah, Mammoth Tufts.
Okay, and what distances do you offer?
45, so there's a short course and a long course.
Okay.
Both are really hard just because of
Right.
altitude and everything. But yeah, 45 or like a little over 100.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Joy.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.